Hello, my friends. Thanks once again for joining us right here on Kardec Radio. We do this program, Spiritism, A Closer Look, every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And in today's program, we are going to take a closer look at humiliation. Of course, no one likes to be humiliated or suffer any form of humiliation. But on the contrary, we rarely care about humiliating others. So there's a lot to be said here, so let's just get into it. First of all, what is humiliation? Let's just put things in perspective. How can we define humiliation? We could say that it's some feeling. It's a feeling that we are, I would say, being lowered in our own eyes or in the eyes of other people. So this feeling that we are less than we should. There are several forms of humiliation. For example, injustice, failure, betrayal, criticism, which is a big one, public embarrassment, and it goes on and on. There are several forms. No one enjoys that. No one enjoys being humiliated. However, from a spiritual perspective, moments like these can become powerful opportunities for inner transformation. In principle, it seems like a little bit hard to grasp, but let's discuss a little bit. Let's talk a little bit more about this thing. So the lesson itself is not the pain itself. It's not the pain itself, but rather how we respond to it, to the event, to the circumstance. And that determines our spiritual maturity. So humiliation becomes more like a perception rather than a fact. Every person sees it different, feels it different. We feel different depending on how we go by and the circumstances that we face. And why is that so complicated for us? Well, humiliation hurts because it strikes right at the ego. And ego is where pride dominates. We know pride is one of the greatest obstacles to moral achievement in humanity. So when that pride feels attacked, that becomes, we go through a little bit of a turmoil in terms of our spirit life. So if we believe someone is, say, insulting us, and we become consumed by anger, for example, what exactly has been wounded? It's our pride. Our pride is the one saying, hey, listen, it raises the red flag, listen, somebody's doing this to me. And this is not at all what Jesus came to teach us. He did not teach us to seek humiliation. He showed us how to endure it without hatred, how to go through it without hatred, revenge or rage or anything like this. He demonstrated that true greatness does not depend on recognition by others. It does not depend on recognition by others. It depends on fidelity to God. It depends how we abide to the laws of God. That is what defines greatness, not what other people think of us. So if we look at Jesus, who came to teach us so many things, this one being one of them, I think he was this supreme example of humiliation. No one experienced greater humiliation than he did. He was crowned with thorns. He was spat upon. He was falsely accused. He was crucified, of course. All of it, despite his innocence. And how did he react? How did he handle it? Not with revenge, not with hatred or anything like that. Instead, he prayed. We know that. Father, forgive them because they have no idea what they're doing. So instead of, bringing up vices and bad stuff that we do in our level of advancement, we do that from within our soul. He didn't do any of that. He just prayed. His dignity remained untouched because his identity was rooted in love, not on the opinion of others. So he came out of it intact in terms of dignity. And that's one thing that Spiritism teaches us, that the true spiritual strength is measured not by power over others, but by mastery over ourselves. We have to master ourselves. We have to transcend hatred. We will one day. Hatred, rage, revenge, impatience, all of that, pride, selfishness. We need to master ourselves. So that is the true spiritual strength. The focus is on us. And a lot of times we don't do that. So from the Spiritist perspective, Spiritism teaches that life, or each incarnation, we could say even better, is just a school. It's a place for learning for us, immortal spirits. It's a learning place. We are here to learn. We are here to improve. And nothing happens without a purpose, as we know. So sometimes we have to undergo humiliation for different reasons. For example, it could be a consequence of things that we did in the past, in this life or previous life. So now it's the time to offset that wrongdoing. So say in the past I was this person who used to humiliate everybody and, play the role of being the very best and untouchable and arrogant. Well, now it's time for me to undergo humiliation because of, it's just an offset of things that I did in the past. We might experience humiliation, for example, because it's an opportunity to develop humility. How can we develop something, some virtue, if we don't have the opportunity to practice that? So how can I practice humility? How can I be humble? Being humiliated is one of them. That if I take it the right way, I'm gonna just, stop and think, why this is happening to me? How should I react? What should I not do? What should I do? That's how we learn. We could be experiencing humiliation just because it's a test of forgiveness and patience. Usually people who humiliate us, it's hard to, forgive them. The first idea for most of us, the first idea is just to put them on a blacklist. And that is exactly what we should not do. That is the wrong move. So we could be experiencing humiliation because we need to learn to forgive? How am I going to be learning to forgive if I want to live in a desert island, no one around to, bother me? It's not going to work. I need the interaction with different people. So people who come to humiliate me, they are bringing me the opportunity to, let it happen and forgive them. We also might be experiencing humiliation because we live in a world of trials and expiations. So it's an imperfect world because all of us are in the same level. We all need to undergo all of that. And people here, just like us, have free will. So if they don't know how to use free will under a certain moral level, they will humiliate us. So we become, I would say, guinea pigs or maybe punching bags of their learning process. You see, the same way I have to learn something, I have to be wrong first to do the correct thing after that. When I do wrong, for example, I'm very aggressive towards people, let's just say. So I need to improve my aggressiveness. How can I improve? I have to practice. So on the first day, I'm very aggressive, maybe on the second, on the third, and then it goes less and less and less and less. So all these people that have been aggressive towards, they are, if you will, guinea pigs. They're my punching bags. So I can learn. So other people need punching bags. So they come, humiliating us. We are their opportunity to let them practice the wrong thing to learn the right thing. So instead of asking, why is this thing happening to me? Why am I being humiliated here? We should ask different. We should ask, what virtue can I develop through this experience? What do I need to master, coming out of this circumstance? So changing the question gives me the opportunity to transform suffering into growth, which is the goal for, that's the reason for us to be here, reincarnated. Transform suffering into growth. So being humiliated might trigger a process in which we are led to live above trials and expiations. Still, free will. I can use that and say, well, I want to do better, I want to be better. Or, because I have free will, I'm just going to say, I don't want to be better. It's my own decision. So by choosing not to improve, just makes it worse for me. I will suffer longer by choice. So humility is often misunderstood. Humility is not weakness to begin with. It's not thinking poorly of ourselves. Rather, it is seeing ourselves truthfully. A humble person recognizes both strengths and imperfections, both of them. A humble person knows this is what I have. These are my strengths. These are my imperfections, things that I have to work on. So humility allows us to accept correction without resentment. It allows us to accept success without vanity. It allows us to accept failure without despair. Those are important things for growth, for spiritual, moral growth. The humble spirit understands that every achievement is temporary, but every virtue becomes an eternal treasure. So that's our goal, to practice virtues. Now, how about the other way around? When we humiliate others, because we are reflecting so far about being humiliated, suffering humiliation. Now, how about the other way around? We should examine as well, right? Whether we have ever humiliated somebody else, or if we do that constantly, or maybe even every day. You see, sometimes a single careless word leaves wounds that last for years. We see a lot of that in people that become later in life, adulthood, with problems. They have to seek psychological help because they were a small kid, or in their childhood, they were hearing these careless words, and they are wounded by those words. Spiritism reminds us that charity begins with our speech, the way we talk to other people. Spirit Emmanuel teaches us that kindness in words is one of the purest forms of charity. So let's just be kind to others when we speak to people. So it all goes down to, do to others what you want others to do to you. Just like that. I don't want to be humiliated, but do I care about, making sure I'm not humiliating other people? So how do we transform humiliation into moral progress? Because that's the goal, moral progress, improvement. How do we transform humiliation into progress? We transform it by the way we choose to respond to the circumstances. We can sustain resentment, or we can cultivate forgiveness. Still, it's free will. We can sustain revenge, but we can also practice understanding. We can sustain bitterness, or we can seek self-improvement, and so on and on and on and on. It doesn't mean that we should be accepting abuse or injustice passively. It's just a way to respond. If I'm going to respond with negative energy coming in the form of resentment, bitterness, revenge, that's a wrong move. Spiritism encourages us, all of us, to defend what is right with calmness, with respect, with dignity, but never with hatred. That's a very clear teaching in Spiritism. So the next time we feel humiliated, we have to start seeing things differently. We can ask ourselves, what exactly is hurting? Is my pride speaking louder than my conscience? Can I respond to this circumstance with serenity instead of anger? What lesson might God be, inviting me to learn here? So we should ask these questions. The same way, when we speak to others, we should ask, will my words heal or wound? Am I correcting with love, or am I simply satisfying my ego? This is the big one. Would I appreciate being treated this way, that I'm treating this person? Would I like to be treated that way? You see, these are simple things, simple questions that can improve and even transform our relationships. Humiliation is never pleasant. Never. But from the perspective of the immortality of the soul, humiliation can polish the soul. It can polish the soul, much like a sculptor shapes the stone. Humiliation can polish the soul. Every painful experience, if we accept these experiences with humility and love and faith, that removes another layer of selfishness and brings us closer to perfection, closer to Jesus. You see, there are layers and layers and layers that we have to clear off our soul. That's why we need several lives, several reincarnations, do a little bit at a time. So undergoing situations like these allow me to, obviously I need to understand why this is happening. That's why studying is so important. So if I understand, it's going to be easier to start clearing off and remove these layers of selfishness and pride. Spiritism teaches, that our true value does not depend on applause, does not depend on titles, does not depend on recognition. Au contraire, it depends on the virtues that we cultivate. But we have to cultivate them. If we don't, then we're wasting time here. So when we learn to remain peaceful amid humiliation, then we begin to understand the example that Jesus left. When we learn to remain forgiven amid offense, same thing. When we learn to remain loving despite rejection, then we understand what he was trying to teach us. We always have both choices because we all have free will. So it all goes down to the same thing. Do I want to do to people this? Do I want to humiliate people? Because if so, I am entitled to feel humiliated by other people. So don't do to others what I don't want others to do to me. That is one of the best teachings Jesus left to us. Well, thank you very much for joining us in this program about humiliation. And don't forget, we run Spiritism A Closer Look every Wednesday at 7 p.m. right here on Kardec Radio. Thank you very much for being with us tonight, and we'll see you next time.